especially for peace in the Holy Land. So, iconography and Catholics, iconography in the Catholic Church, iconography and Catholic liturgy. Do the two really go together? Or is a Catholic doing icons a bit like a cuckoo in the nest? Something strange and exotic and disturbing and even possibly destructive to the integrity of the icon? That's perhaps a good question to start with. And the discussion that I was having with Matthew really was sort of touching on this subject, because I think a lot of us who are Catholics and involved in the world of Byzantine icon often are left feeling quite emasculated, second best, sort of at best welcome friend at the table of the banquet of Orthodoxy, at worst heretics who should be nowhere near the place. Well, let's forget that a bit, because I think most of my experience with Orthodox is that there is a genuine love and delight, really, that non-Orthodox people have a love for icon. And secondly, I think in a way that exposes the problem that as Catholics we've sort of handed over the legitimacy of iconography to the Orthodox. So this really is there, and we're just sort of interlope. So that's something I think is worth challenging. It's such a vast topic, it is difficult to know quite where to break open, which is why I was really hoping for some of your questions. But there haven't really been any, so in fact there's been no questions whatsoever. So I'm to make use of this time and opportunity, I'm just going to sort of begin to explore some ideas a little further. And if you have any questions now, if you want to make any feedback now, please put them in the comments, and then I can see them, and then I'll try to respond to them. So I'm really in your hands to answer whatever questions you might have, YouTube as well as Facebook. So this is good. So one of the things which, as a Catholic, I've been sort of more and more aware of is that when you read people like Uspensky and Florensky and Conticlew and all the sort of great names in iconography, they tend to just pass over the contribution of Catholics. And a good example would be Aidan is a good friend of mine, Aidan Hart, just written a really nice little book, which I have here somewhere, which is a sort of introduction to it. And in the book, he talks about the struggle about iconoclasm. And the popes get hardly a mention, but the opponent of iconoclasm within the church's hierarchy really came from the Catholic Church, and essentially the popes, who were vigorous in their defense of icons, vigorous in opposing the emperor, even to the point of facing death threats and the possibility of exile. But they didn't give in. They remained resilient. They witnessed to the Orthodox faith, and the Byzantine Empire completely gave way to the heresy of iconoclasm. It wasn't just a heresy, it was schism, because it separated the Byzantine Church from the rest of the church. And it was also sacrilege, because the Byzantine Empire went into a whole-scale suppression of images. It exiled the makers of icons who turned up in the West and had quite an impact in Rome and in the court of the Carolingians. And the Byzantine Empire not only did that, but it also desecrated the image of Christ. You know, when you destroy an icon deliberately, when you deface the image of Our Lady and the saint on the walls of a church, it's called desecration, sacrilege. This is really serious. And I think when you read the accounts of iconoclasm, largely from within the Byzantine world, either historians of Byzantium or Orthodox Christians, their perspective naturally sort of dominates the narrative that they tell. And over the last century, the contribution of the non-Orthodox, the non-Byzantine, has sort of been allowed to just sort of fade from sight, combined with a sort of robust reassertion of Orthodox identity in the last 50 years, with the return of, the fall of communism, return of the church to a place of prominence in Russia and across the former Soviet Warsaw Pact lands. So this sort of really strong response to a renewed Orthodox identity hasn't wanted to see anything other than Orthodoxy achieving anything. It's very much a sealed in view. Whereas if you come from the Catholic world, a lot of this doesn't feel quite right. And over the last sort of couple of years, I've begun to really dig into what really happened during Iconoclasm. And St. Theodore the Studite, for example, who is one of the very few people who oppose iconoclasm from within Byzantium. And most of the opposition, in fact, almost all the opposition, came from monks and monasteries, not from bishops, not from the hierarchy. They were largely subservient to the will of the emperor. They were apparatchiks of the imperial bureaucracy. So the resistance came not from the Byzantine church, but from the monk, people like St. Theodore of the Studion monastery. And he makes it very clear that when it comes to orthodoxy, the office of Peter, the office of the papacy, is the bastion of the Orthodox faith. So, even these knowledge theologians of the icon, greatly revered by the Orthodox, you find even from their lips this affirmation of just how important the papacy is. So I think when you begin to sort of peel away the sort of Orthodox veneer, looking back at what happened, take a sort of fresh view and really sort of weigh up just what was going on, how serious it was. This wasn't a temporary blip. Some odd emperor had a bit of a fit about images. This lasted on and off for the best part of 100 years, 150 years. It was basically endorsed by the entire hierarchy of the Byzantine Church. There are no records of any substantial opposition, apart from, as I say, from within the monasteries. That means that when we look for the restoration of images in the Byzantine world, we have to really understand that iconography had to be reinvented. It wasn't just a sort of something that went wrong, for a few years or decade. This was something that was deeply entrenched in Byzantine culture, and so then had to be okay. So let's see if I can. I've got somebody come into the thing. There we are. Carol, hello. Are you hearing me? Oh, well, there we are. We have just a bit of a strange person giving a very nasty video up there. So never mind. So back to what I was saying. That the peel back though that sort of Orthodox perspective, take a fresh view, and really start weighing up the seriousness of what iconoclasm means or meant at the time, and then reassess the contributions of Catholicism, especially the popes, to that whole period. Because we're not talking, as I say, about 10 or 20 years, we're talking about 1.5 centuries. What held the Orthodox faith in place? Where did it go? Where was it found? It was found in Rome and the West, and the center of creativity in liturgical art during this period shifted to Rome and also to the Carolingian court. So that's a little bit north into Germany and France, Charlemagne's domain. Now, people will make a big thing, very big thing, among some Orthodox commentators about how the Charlemagne eventually rejects iconography and the use